It's not 5 o'clock, and they don't care. Welcome to Wine to 5. Entertainment, education, and everyday drinking for everyday people. Your hosts are Valerie Caruso and Stephanie Davis, two wine educators who don't need a clock to know when to pour that next glass.
Welcome back, Wine to 5 listeners. Can you believe it's October already?
Oh no, right? We've been doing this for almost 6 months already, and it seems like just yesterday we were talking about how to cool down your wines for warmer weather.
I know, and now we're talking about cooler weather and the entertaining and party season warming up.
Speaking of party, I just found out that today, the 30th of September, is International Podcast Day!
Woo! Yay, I had no idea.
I didn't either. I think it's the first one. So, you know, what they're trying to do with Podcast Day, International Podcast Day, is promote the art of podcasting. So they're inviting everybody to go out and tell everybody what your favorite podcast is. And we hope we're one of them.
Yeah.
So you can go to the link. We posted it on the Facebook page. And go ahead and, just sign up. And it's a great way to get educated in all kinds of things or be entertained. Or both.
Yes.
In our case. But definitely let everybody know what your favorite podcast is. Hint, hint, Wine 25. Hint, hint, Wine 25. So I just thought I'd throw that out there because I just found out.
A little hashtag W25 too.
Yeah, a little hashtag W25. International Podcast Day. And it's Wine Wednesday. So what are we drinking today, Stephanie? What are you drinking?
Well, you know what? Even though it's Wine Wednesday, I am having cider. I am having hard pumpkin cider by Wild Cider because it's following up with our fall-autumn theme. And I have it in this, I don't know if you can see this, Val. I've got this cute little glass that has all this Thanksgiving theme on it.
Oh.
Yeah, it's a New Belgium brewery beer glass, but it's so pretty and makes me feel festive. So, yeah, and this pumpkin hard cider, it's very refreshing and has all of the apple nuances of a cider, but it has the seasonal spices and a refreshing, clean aftertaste. So, yum.
Yum. That's a good middle of the day drink, too, on a fall day, I think.
It is. What are you drinking?
So I'm sticking with the fall theme, too, because I have a Stephen Millier Shiraz open, but honestly, I made this cocktail last night, and I wanted it for breakfast again today, but couldn't do that because I was going hiking, so I made it for lunch. So I have here in my glass, and you can see this, with this twig sticking out. It's actually rosemary. It keeps poking me in the eye when I'm trying to drink it, but I need really, and it's... No kidding. It is a bourbon apple cider cocktail.
Yum.
So we got some fresh spiced apple cider and all organic and all that. We got some bourbon and there's some fresh 2015 maple syrup from Canada in here that we just got. I like fresh syrup, fresh olive oil, all those things just from the fall. And there's a sprig of rosemary in here. But the thing about this cocktail, it sounds like it'd be really sweet because bourbon's sweet, cider's sweet, maple syrup is sweet, but it's really not. It's very refreshing. Obviously goes down really, really smooth. And what's really amazing about it is you're kind of hitting all your senses. You've got these great glassware, and when you put your nose toward the glass and you smell that rosemary, that savory aroma with the sweet cocktail, it's just a really good experience. And I can post the recipe. There is a picture on my Vino with Val page. I did Instagram it last night and tweet it. But it is a beautiful cocktail. Absolutely delicious for fall. So wine is great. Happy Wine Wednesday. But I'm all about the fall flavors. And, honestly, I don't think pumpkin wine is something I really want to get on board with. So
no, not going to do it. No, leave that for the other.
It's not on my drinking list. It's not on my study specification either. So there's that. So yay, seasonal entertaining. That's what we're talking about. We're getting ready for fall. We're going to talk comfort foods, evenings in front of the fire. Once it gets below 80 here in Colorado Springs, because this is ridiculous. And, of course, entertaining with wine is going to heat up as the temperatures cool down.
Yes.
And so we're going to talk this week about entertaining for fall. And I found an article last week in Wine Spectator, the wine mag, and they gave you 5 really quick tips for fall. I really like these tips because they kind of give you an idea that you don't have to hang up some of the things you loved all summer long just because it's fall, like bubbles.
Yeah.
And honestly, it's entertaining season. So sparkling wine, you would think sales would go up and drinking of that would go up. But what they have done is they've given you an idea of a rich type of wine, a sparkling wine that you could have that might not be as light and citrusy and fresh as like if you're doing a Prosecco cocktail or a lighter Chardonnay-based champagne. This one here is a Bidicar Saint-Mont. It's a non-vintage Brut sous Bois champagne that they recommend in this article. And this whole thing is entirely fermented in oak. Mm-hmm. So it's going to be a lot richer, and you can have this with your heavier styles of champagne. Because honestly, if you taste champagne side by side, they are different. There are some lighter styles, there are some more earthy, there are some more rich styles. And when I just hear that producer, I start drooling because I just love everything they produce. So that's one idea they put in here. And then also think about the ingredients. I've got this sprig of rosemary, that keeps tickling my nose and poking my eye out here. But a lot of foods in the fall, when you get into your sage, I'm making a sage butternut squash dish tonight with some sausage. Yeah. Those are fall flavors. They're more savory. So you want a wine that's going to stand up not only to those flavors, but even those creamy textures. Yeah. Cheesy dishes, comfort foods, something that the wine can kind of not get lost in the food. Yeah. So I like that. They mentioned Gamay. So if you think of Beaujolais Nouveau, that's what they're talking about, Gamay, but they give you some other recommendations. And then the last tip on here that we love is revisiting your summer travels when choosing the bottles. I like the way you put that, Steph. Go ahead and talk about that one for a little.
Yeah, well, a couple of things. That definitely is a great way to spend time with your friends, enjoying wine that you maybe purchased on your summer trip, or that you even learned about when you were on a trip. Maybe you didn't drink it yet, but you bought it or you learned about it, and now in the fall, getting together with friends, you can recount what you did over the summer and share some wines with them, that's new for them too. So I think that's a really cool tidbit, because it's not telling you what kind of wine to drink.
Right. Right. And when you were a kid and you went back to school in the fall and you had to talk about my summer vacation? Yep. So that's that for grown-ups. Like my girlfriend shipped back like 4 cases of Brunello when she was in Italy last summer. And I know she's waiting to drink these things. Yeah. Yeah, so it's kind of like we went to Disneyland, but for grown-ups.
Exactly. Well, and also going back to that wine enthusiast article you were talking about, and the champagne and sparkling wine choices for entertaining. Think about the options to spice it up with adding pomegranate seeds as a decorative thing in your champagne flute, or different fall kind of fruits, cranberries or things like that you can maybe add some juice to it, right? To have like a little champagne cocktail. Or not even add that to it, just have one floating in there, or 2 or 3, so that it just feels more festive. And choosing those kind of fruits, pomegranates or cranberries, instead of strawberries,
Oh, yeah, or a slice of pear.
Yeah, so that's kind of...
But it's not going to ruin the wine either.
Exactly.
Especially if it's an expensive one,
Right.
I like that.
Yeah. Well, and this came up the other day because... on Monday, I was getting my fiery red hair color touched up, and my Bond girl, and I'm serious because her name is Shell Bond, and she really looks like a James Bond girl. But she says to me as she's, I'm getting the head massage at the sink, That's the whole reason why you get your hair done in the first place. But so
it really is.
So she says, what is the wine equivalent to pumpkin beer or pumpkin coffee for this time of year? And I thought that was a really good question, because I'm sure a lot of our listeners are thinking the same thing. And I know a lot of people clamor for the pumpkin coffee, pumpkin spice coffee, lattes, and all that for this time of year. And like Valerie and I are talking about, there isn't a pumpkin equivalent per se with pumpkin wine, but these earthier red wines and fuller bodied whites and also, don't forget about mulled wine, or that hot spiced wine, or the Swedes call it glug, I think it is.
And the Germans call it Glühwein, and the Italians call it vin brûlé.
Oh, vin brûlé. Okay, yeah, see, I didn't know that. But, and so those are always options too. But I think there's a lot of imagination that you can have creating a wine cocktail. Like we said with the cranberry theme or the apple theme, something like that. So maybe that might be the new thing you see online or social media, creating your own fall wine cocktail. I found one online that was called a rosé sangria with cranberries and apples, and that had a Spanish rosé and ruby port in it.
Yum!
Yeah, I think that's pretty creative.
It is, and that also means you don't have to put the rosé away for the summer either.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people, we praise the rosé all summer long, but, I was at a tasting in Denver last week, and they had a beautiful French rosé there that I know my favorite purveyor up there in Monument, Dirk, is going to stock for the holidays because it's a richer style of rosé. Yeah. And remember, not all rosé is sweet, but this is a great style for the holidays for doing just as you said. And I can't wait to get my hands on a couple bottles because when we get into holiday entertaining, I always talk about Thanksgiving, the big eating holiday we have here. We give thanks, we eat a lot. And people always ask me, like, well, what wine should I have with Thanksgiving? And I don't know if we talked about this on the podcast before, but I'm like, that is such a schizophrenic meal. You can't pair one wine with that, unless it's maybe rosé is probably as close as you can get. You got the properties of a red wine, you got the acidity of a white wine, because you got, what kind of crazy stuffing, and it depends on the kind of stuffing and the kind of bird or the kind of meat. Are you doing crown roasted pork? What are you doing? Mm-hmm. So I love a rosé, and that's one of the first things I'll go to for the table. Maybe have a light-bodied red like a Gamay, and that could be the answer to the fall wine because everybody waits for the Gamay Beaujolais or the Beaujolais Nouveau to come out. Mm-hmm. I'm sorry, the Beaujolais Nouveau. Il est arrivé. It's you go in France and it's all over the place. The signs, it has arrived. So yeah, third Thursday in November, it's there. But in Italy, they call it Vino Novello. Yeah. And so that actually beats the Beaujolais Nouveau out the door. That comes out I believe the 5th or 6th of November.
Oh.
So it actually, it is the first release. It's not Beaujolais Nouveau. Everybody thinks it is. Uh-huh. It's actually called Vino Novello. We don't get that over here. Yeah. The amount of carbonic maceration, the way they make that wine is a little different in Italy, and it varies by region. But that with roasted chestnuts. Oh. It's to die. So that would be the closest thing to the equivalent, or a good rosé if you can't wait for November. Mm-hmm. So yeah, but I like your suggestion for the sangria. That is awesome.
I think that sounded pretty good, and it was a nice transition from summer to fall, having that with cranberries, apples, and then the ruby port makes it sound a lot more multi-dimensional. I don't know. Yeah, it's cool. Well, and then, like I was saying, there's no equivalent to pumpkin wine, but there's so many great pumpkin recipes that then you find a great wine pairing, pull it all together. And so, pumpkin ginger soup with a nice German Riesling. I mean, can't go wrong with that.
Oh, no. That sounds delicious. Oh, my gosh. I'm getting hungry, by the way.
I know.
I just ate all the apples out of my cocktail, so I'm going to have to start gnawing on this rosemary twig here in a minute.
Poor rosemary has been abused.
It's been in my eye. It's been in my nose. I'm chewing. Oh, no, I'm just kidding. What's our factoid, Stephanie? What's our factoid for this week? We should probably move on.
Yes. Okay, so what is eau de vie? Okay, and so I came across this in last week's Wall Street Journal in the eating and drinking section, and they had an article called Eau de Vie in the Mix. So Eau de Vie translates to water of life, or what some other distilleries, like this one in particular out of Louisville called Copper and King's Distillery, calls it immature brandy. And it's a fruit brandy that hasn't been aged, and they typically ferment pears, apples, or raspberries. I mean, it could be other fruits too. And usually twice distilled into a clear, strong spirit. So they kind of described it in an article in a very clever way called farm to table flavored vodka. If you can imagine what that concept would be like. So it's a very niche category in the U.S., making a lot of headway though, and being used to have mixed cocktails. But typically not typically, but more traditionally served as an after dinner drink neat. But now they're making it with like 2 to 3 different ingredients and having kind of a new take on a cocktail using eau de vie instead of a different spirit. And then one other cool factoid is George Washington made a peach eau de vie. So that kind of brings us back to last week's episode about history and historical figures. So, yeah.
I love that. And, it's interesting because I spent all day Saturday writing and reading about eau de vie and have actually got to see some of it being made in Languedoc when I was there. And what coincidentally was on my wino radar this weekend, if you will, was pears in particular. This is a very popular eau de vie. There's cherry eau de vie or cherry brandies where they sometimes use the pits. They crush them to get a richer flavor. Or there's plum out there. But the pear one, which is really cool because a couple distilleries will grow these pears inside bottles.
Yeah. It looks amazing.
Yeah, the bottles are hanging on the tree, and the pear will grow inside the bottle. No kidding. And this actually, back to history, originated in Alsace in the 1700s. So I know they call it William's pear is one of the names you might see. You might see an eau de vie Poire William. Poire is a French word for pear. William is another name for the Bartlett pear. Apparently, according to the Clear Creek Distillery in Oregon. And they do one with a pear in the bottle. It's about $80 a bottle, but it makes a cool gift.
That's what I was going to say. What a, profound gift. Because, of course, the first thing everybody says is, how did they get the pear inside that bottle?
It's a beautiful presentation. And then there's another distillery called Westford Hill, and they have what they call poire prisonnière. So a pear being held prisoner in a bottle. And the bottle shape is absolutely gorgeous. And that's got a full-size Bartlett pear grown in it as well. So it's really an interesting thing for the fall if you want to give a unique gift or just again, bring something funny to a party.
Yeah.
A bottle with a pear in it. Hello, conversation piece. I'm like, oh yeah, it's twice distilled, batch, it's like a brandy. We're just going to have it in a little shot glass just so we can get that fruit thing on and all that. So you can really do some fun fall entertaining with that. And if you don't want to spring for $80 for a bottle, just get a regular bottle and look for eau de vie, EAUDEVIE. That means water of life, and be the hit of your fall party.
Yeah.
Have some more bourbon, Val.
Have some more bourbon. Have some more cider stuff. But yeah, I mean, you could bring a nice gift of some kind of pear strata or a pear flatbread with blue cheese crumbles on it and have a whole pear theme. Bring the gift of the eau de vie, the pear eau de vie, and then a shareable appetizer that has pears and blue cheese, and I mean, you'd be like the hit of the party.
Oh my God, like gorgonzola and walnuts and speak it, sister.
Yum.
Yeah. So we should probably move on to the wino radar. Steph, what's on your wino radar this week?
Well,
because we could go on.
I know, really. And we do have so many things on our radar, it's hard to pick which ones to put where in the podcast.
That's true.
But my buddy, Caitlin Normand in Arizona, she just recently wrote a blog continuing with some Trader Joe's recommendations, but this time focusing on fall food and wine. And she has 4 different wines that she recommends from Trader Joe's. And you can find this blog posted on the Winacea website. And that's WINACEA.com. So if you are a Trader Joe's shopper, give it a look.
Very cool. Well, speaking of shopping, my wino radar, something caught my eye this weekend. And I actually connected with Julia Phillips on Twitter. She's the director of Just Perfect Wines. And what that is is a company that has own brand Prosecco Superiore. So what that is a very good quality of Prosecco out there. And she has a company now where you can actually order for corporate gifting. So we're talking like minimum of 48 units here. But it comes with 2 Riedel glasses and a bottle of Prosecco with your own company logo on it and the box. And it's a beautiful presentation, really, really high end. Like I said, you're dealing with the glasses, the Riedel glasses, and then this high-end Prosecco. So if you wanted to give something as a really nice gift to a client, I thought that was just brilliant because there are so many personalized wine programs out there, but the wine is not always all that.
Well, and you've got the Riedel glasses, that definitely steps it up a notch, and then having a bubbly also focuses on a time of celebration.
It does. And this is a good quality bubbly. So right now, I want to say it's based in the United Kingdom. I'm not sure when you can get it outside the United Kingdom. It's just up and coming. But I think that's just a really exciting thing. And I just saw that, and she seems super cool. And, again, it's the quality of wine that they're focusing on. It's not just, hey, we're going to put our label on it and charge you a fortune. So I really like what they're doing with personalized wines. And that was my wino radar.
Yeah, I totally dig it. So I'm going to actually look into that. That's pretty cool. So
it is very cool. It's very cool. So we should probably get the shout outs.
Yep. So my shout out goes to Jennifer Gurley. She made a great post on Facebook sharing our podcast and her love of Wine25. So thank you so much for sharing that on Facebook. We really appreciate all of your love, Jennifer.
We do. Thank you so much. And happy International Podcast Day to you. She's doing exactly what we want her to do. Share the love.
Yep.
Just like the video said. And speaking of that video that we made last week, which we'll talk about later, we did get a burning wine question.
Yeah.
And that was one of the things that we asked for. We said Cork Dorks love burning wine questions. Well, Dustin put a burning wine question on Facebook regarding sherry. And he says, I want to like sherry. First of all, does that count as wine? Secondly, where do I go to try a glass? What am I looking for? So if you go ahead and check it out on Facebook, I mean, we already kind of answered him directly, but first of all, sherry is a wine. It's a fortified wine. And it made us think that we're probably going to do a podcast episode on sherry and probably one on port as well as we get into the winter because, well, those are fireside drinks.
Oh, yeah, they are.
For sure.
Yeah.
We kind of gave him some tips. He's up in Fort Collins, so Stephanie gave him some tips on where to go to try a glass. And we also kind of gave him some ideas what to look for as far as the dry styles versus the very sweet Pedro Jimenez styles. So, and what to do with them. So hopefully we led him in the right direction. I did invite him to come down to Colorado Springs because we have a restaurant here that does sherry flights. In fact, Steph, you got to enjoy that with my friend Dave and I, and me. And they do, a kind of a range of different sherries. Mm-hmm. So if you want to try those, Tapateria here in Colorado Springs actually does sherry flights, and that's a very rare thing to find. So
it is, and that was a very cool place.
And that's a good shout out. So shout out to Tapateria, they're downtown Colorado Springs, Old Town Colorado. So that brings us to next week.
Yes. Okay, so next week, funny wine descriptors and the most ridiculous reviews or critiques of wines you've ever heard or read. Please share them with us because we will share them with everybody on the podcast, and we will share ours with you. We are really looking forward to that.
Right, we've already gotten some inputs, which is really cool.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a really cool episode because we're just going to have some special inputs. Let's just put it that way. We're not going to ruin a surprise, but I think you all are going to be really, really looking forward to this episode because it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
That brings us to the end of our podcast time today. Our time, as always, goes way too quickly. But we want to hear from you, and we love that you guys are reaching out and engaging with us. You can contact Steph on Twitter. She's at Albarello Soap on Twitter and also on the Albarello Soap Facebook page. You can find me, Val, also on Twitter, and I'm at WineGal Unboxed. And also on the Vino with Val Facebook page and on Instagram also as Vino with Val. In fact, this latest cocktail, there's a beautiful picture of it from last night with the rosemary sticking out of it and everything. Steph?
So you can visit us on the Wine25 Facebook page or our Twitter. And you can also email us at wineTWOFIVE@gmail.com and let us know what your burning wine question is. And now we have a YouTube channel. Woo woo!
Yes, we do.
And we have a Pinterest page, so we are moving up in the world, folks.
We are all about sharing the love, and so there are so many ways to do it now. If you love Wine to Five, we know you do, because you keep coming back, and you've told us as much. Please, please, please post a review for us on iTunes or Stitcher. And definitely share us with your friends or anybody you know that loves a drink. And here's how to do it. We actually got a 5-star review from C.A. Jazz, who wrote on iTunes. And I quote, "Another fun, educational, and entertaining episode. Enjoyed learning about Gary and his ready-to-drink packaging. A great concept and needed product for us wine drinkers, especially us active, on-the-go travelers. We will be following Gary and his product. I wish him the best. Learned of wine movies I was not aware of and look forward to checking them out. Movie nights with wine and friends is always a good time. Some new learning from Dom Perignon factoid, a great contribution." Now, I think they mean Dom, not Val and Steph, as far as a great contribution. But either way, C.A. Jazz, we thank you so much for your words and your 5 stars. We treasure them. We're up to 2 whole reviews now, so that's really awesome, and we thank you all for that. And then, of course, the feedback you give us on social media as well. So that brings us to the end of another week here at Wine 25. We thank you all for listening. So until next week,
cheers!
Cheers!
Thank you for listening to the Wine to 5 podcast. Be sure to check us out at Facebook/WineTWO5 and tune in next week for more fun and useful sip tips.